What's up, team? So let's talk about Bitcoin for a bit. It's been a while. I am a holder of Bitcoin. I am a fan of that specific cryptocurrency. And I want to dig into a little bit about this idea of utility, because I think utility is a conversation that we haven't been hearing probably enough about. And I think it helps to sort of sway some of the critics as to what the main problem here is. So before I jump in, as usual, not financial advice. This is just education and some opinions that I have on things that I hold. Full transparency, I do hold Bitcoin. I hold a handful of other cryptocurrencies, but very small volumes. I've been in Bitcoin since 2016, was a miner. I have some of that mining equipment behind me. I don't think you can even see it. And that's been turned off for quite a while. But let's talk about really what's going on here. We've watched the price get just pummeled for a while now. It jumped up over 40, which is great. And I think it's funny, like, if you follow Bitcoin on Twitter, the Twitterverse is exploding. Where there's tons of people who love it, laser eyes and all the rest. Michael Saylor just gave an amazing interview the other day on CNBC, really talking about it, the value, and why he's looking to buy more. But I don't think the problem is convincing people who like it that it's a good thing to hold or why they're holding it. I think that the one thing I've seen since I got involved in this, even back in those, I mean, it feels like 30 years ago, and thinking about that, was really only, 6 years. The one headline that seems to be consistently pushed in front of us is blank, Bitcoin price plunges. Skeptics say cryptocurrency doesn't have value, is useless, isn't worth anything. And then there's always these arguments for why and what we're missing. And I talk a lot on this channel about artificial intelligence. I talk about machine learning. I talk about lots of different stocks and things like that. And I think the one most important thing I pull away from all these conversations is, what is the utility that gives something its value? And I think that's what we're going to focus on today. So here's the deal, right? When we break this down to an economic, perspective, right? I'm sorry about the coughing. There's typically two boxes that we want to check off, right? Scarcity and utility, right? That's how we define value. Scarcity is really simple. Something has a finite supply. In the case of Bitcoin, there's 21 million total Bitcoins. Now, it's going to take a long time to mine all of those. Some of them have ended up being lost over time, et cetera, et cetera. But the reality is that is the scarcity that's built into the system. You can argue that that's still a lot and that you can break those down into tiny fractions for sure, but a limit is still a limit no matter how you break it down. And part of the reason why I prefer Bitcoin over other cryptocurrencies, especially those that do not have a built-in cap, is that they simply will not be more. And so that in of itself creates scarcity. Now, scarcity alone does not mean anything. I can have only 12 rocks, but if nobody wants those rocks and don't do anything except for sit in front of my house, then it really doesn't matter, right? But at a key level, this is one of those reasons why it's a nice thing, right? We know that you can only mine so fast. We know the speed that mining takes place. We can help to understand how to build a model for pricing around that. So you might say to yourself, like, okay, well, what about gold? There's only so much gold, and gold is a good comparison. The thing with gold, though, is you can decide how fast you want to gold. You can, per quadruple pipeline in a second if you wanted to send out 4 times the trucks and miners and drills and everything else. So although there's in theory a finite supply, you can accelerate that supply very quickly, or you can decelerate and shut things off. So ultimately there's still someone controlling it, right? And that's sort of centralization of mining. In terms of Bitcoin, we think about this in terms of a decentral perspective where no one government, company, or person owns enough to control everything. Now, to be fair, there could be arguments made here that some of the largest holders out there could potentially do this, but it's just going to get to a point where there's almost so much cost to doing that, it would make it very difficult to actually happen. So that's just something I want to really start with. So I think key word here was, we know that there's scarcity. There's 21 million coins. There's a predictable rate of hashing and how many we can create. And there's every 4 years we have a halving of its difficulty to mine more, right? So let's talk about utility for a second. So number one, I'm going to break this down super, super simple. From a utility perspective, there is no single person or bank, as we just said, that controls all of it, okay? You can divide it as much as you really need to, down to the Satoshis. You can buy a donut with it. I'm reading this from a very old article I like here, and you could buy a house with it. You can do anything you want with it, right? But I think the reality is, I look at this as, I right now, with just my phone, can send it or receive it to anyone on the planet. Let's not talk about the cost for a second, because that's not the point here. We're not talking about profitability, margins, etc. At its most basic scale, there's only so much that exists. Not any one person, bank, or government can control all of it. And I can easily send money back and forth to anyone I want at a moment's notice. That's the utility for me, okay? So the other piece of utility is the fact that the blockchain is connected to Bitcoin. I can see what wallet sent to where and received how much at what time. That is immutable. It will be there forever. Anyone can check that. It's very much possible to scrutinize that at scale. Now, here's the other thing, right? You could do a lot of this stuff with traditional money. You can do it with gold. You can track how things are moving back and forth. Now, you can argue, of course, if I hand you $10 cash, don't write it down anywhere. Of course, that's not going to be recorded either. But I just want to make it clear that I have a process for doing that. It's difficult to do it. If I try to do it in large amounts, it gets tracked. It's hard to move gold. It's very heavy, right? So just something to keep in mind as well. The other piece of it, too, is paper currency has cost, right? So the argument of like, well, you know, it's hard to mine Bitcoin. Well, it's also expensive to create cash money as well, right? So keep that in the back of your mind as well. I think that a lot of people, especially maybe if you haven't done major transactions, right, like buying properties or wiring money for an investment account, or even doing like a bank transfer, for example, like an ACH, I think one thing to really think about too is it's expensive and time consuming to move money because so many people have to check on it. It has to go through a process and permissions. At the end of the day, it's your money. All you're asking is to have a transfer from one person to the next. I picked up an investment property about a year ago, and I had to wire a six-figure sum through a bank. First of all, filling out the form, they make you scared out of your mind that if there's a single mistake on that, the money's lost forever. When I fill out the form, hand it to the person behind the counter, they weren't even sure that they knew what they were doing. They were nervous about it. Then frankly, the person said they want to go and check with the manager, make sure they did it right. And then hopefully the next day or within 24 hours, I'll see it hit where it's supposed to go. I then have to confirm with that person that the wire is on the way and to let me know when the wire hits. I could have done that same amount in seconds with just my phone, and it could have been for any dollar value. It could have been 100,000, a million, 10 million, 100 million. I could have easily just transferred that across. So that's the kind of utility that I'm looking for. Widespread, easy to use. Anyone, anywhere, regardless of banking status, can use it and get action from it. So that's really like, that's what I wanted to talk about today. Is I was thinking about the fact that this constant pressure, this constant negativity, this constant perusal through media of like, it's over, it's dead, it's useless, has no value. I hear this constantly. There's no value to it whatsoever. You can make that argument for lots of these altcoins, these crap coins, these worthless things, these rug pulls and scams and everything else that's out there. I actually did a video the other day on NFTs. I hate NFTs. I think they're a scam. That's going to get a lot of negative attention on my back, but the truth is, I think that is a utility-less experience until we create more value built within it, like what their purpose is. But if you said to me at its most basic value, why should Bitcoin have any worth or value whatsoever? And I think that the entire thing here is that it's being confused, right? What is the value of corn? Well, it's a commodity. I can eat it, I can trade it, I can grow it, I can sell it. You know, what is the value of gold? Maybe some industrial use cases, but largely as a store of value. We don't have issues valuing those things. So we shouldn't have an issue valuing Bitcoin, right? Now, this doesn't mean that I can predict the price. It doesn't mean that I think it's going to be worth, 50K, 100K, a million, or 10 million. I have no idea, frankly, right? I haven't done the work on the on-chain analysis. But what I do know is if I had to transfer money this afternoon and I wanted to get it into someone else's hands within minutes, no one else is going to do it really better. And I also know that I can easily track when it got there. I can see where it came from and where it's going to. I can track that value in my phone. I don't need permission from a bank to do so. So that's it. I just want to do a quick one today because I've been really hearing like just the doubling down of negativity. And I want to tell a quick story to end this. When I was first getting into this, and it was cheap, like, low three figures. And granted, there's people who have been in way before me. I remember buying a little bit and people saying like, oh man, you're just throwing that money away. And these are the same people who will buy penny stocks or like no-name meme stocks and just hope for the best. And then, based on no business value whatsoever, cross the fingers and hope for 10 baggers, right? And I remember as this thing went to 500 and then 1,000 and then 2,000, the whole way I'm saying, I don't know, this doesn't feel like a scam. It feels like it's pretty interesting. You're having the same conversation going back 16, 17, 18, 19, even after it dropped down from about that 19,000 level all the way to the floor again. I kept saying like, nothing has changed. It's an economic, environmental thing. It's a geopolitical thing. But the utility of it is still usable on my phone, easily transfer from one wallet to another, and I can track that money movement. But still, the same people who thought it was bad then still tell me it's bad now. And even today, as I'm recording this video, I have those same conversations where when it went back down under 10, down to 6, down even less, I said, hey, maybe now you should think about grabbing a little bit, throwing a little bit of money at this. Not because I'm trying to offer investment advice, but what if you had to transfer that money? What if you just needed it? What if it's just nice to have something that has a limited amount? Excuse me, and you own some. But what I find is the same folks who have not been interested when it was 100, aren't interested at 2,000, aren't interested at 5,000. However, when it broke 60, that's when I started getting the calls of like, hey, what's the deal with this Bitcoin? How do we get in on this? And you know what the lesson is? It's still probably okay to get in on it. So, take it for what it's worth. Understand the utility, the value, and the economic side of this. Get away from the news, the concerns about it going to zero. I mean, listen, anything can go to zero. We've seen gigantic global companies go to zero because of fraud, because we couldn't see the books. At least here we can see the books. We can see what's happening on the chain. We can make some predictions with that. So with that, that's a Saturday, pretty relaxed video today. As always, I really appreciate a like and a subscribe if you haven't done so already. But otherwise, I just hope you enjoy the video. I'm happy to go deep into any topic across the board, both financial and tech related. So please let me know if there's something else you'd like me to talk about. Otherwise, have a great weekend. Hope the weather's not too bad. It's pretty cold and icy out here where I am. But otherwise, take it easy, everybody. Thanks so much for watching.